Xiao Yan and Medusa's honeymoon journey was marked by the purchase of a 7-colored primordial stone as a wedding gift for Medusa, which facilitated her later evolution into a 7-colored sky-devouring python. Continuing from the previous chapter, after Xiao Yan's wedding ceremony with Medusa, he brought Kailin and Xiao Xiao back to the Falling Star Pavilion through a spatial wormhole. Inside the Falling Star Pavilion, in the inner cabinet, Yao Lao looked at the little girl in white, who was holding Xiao Yan's thigh and staring at him with her big black eyes. His aged face was full of astonishment. "Is this your daughter?" Seeing Yao Lao's expression, Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile and nodded. He knew that when Kailin was suspected of being pregnant, Yao Lao had already been captured by the Soul Hall, so he was unaware of this. He then briefly recounted the events of that time. After listening to Xiao Yan's account, even with Yao Lao's composure, he couldn't help but shake his head. I didn't expect it, really didn't expect it." Glancing at Kailin, he chuckled playfully. "Back then, your wife hated you to death. If it weren't for me, you might have become a ghost under her hand." Hearing Yao Lao's words, Kailin's usually cold and beautiful cheeks turned a little red. She had secretly fought with Yao Lao many times in the past but never expected that the old man, who seemed only slightly stronger than her at the time, would turn out to be such a formidable figure. "Xiao Xiao, greet your master's grandfather." Kailin gently patted Xiao Xiao's little head and said softly. Xiao Xiao blinked her big black eyes, hesitated to look at Xiao Yan, and only after he smiled and nodded did she timidly call out, "Master's grandfather." Hearing Xiao Xiao's soft call, a genuine smile of joy appeared on Yao Lao's aged face. He had no children, and he had long regarded Xiao Yan as his own son, and Xiao Yan's daughter was like his own granddaughter to him. For an old man of his age, no matter how powerful he was, he always had a special fondness for children. Yao Lao walked up, his eyes brimming with a smile, and affectionately touched Xiao Xiao, then pinched her little arm with his withered hand. After a moment, a look of pleasant surprise appeared in his eyes. "Such a powerful soul force. She also has a fire attribute, and there is also a trace of wood energy in her body. She can become an alchemist." In response to Yao Lao's exclamation, Xiao Yan smiled slightly. He had also noticed that Xiao Zhao's constitution was very suitable to become an alchemist. Her current conditions were probably much stronger than his at that time. If she was well trained, her potential in the future would be extraordinary. "Her soul force is even stronger than when I found you, and her physique is several times stronger than yours at that time. If she is well trained, her future achievements may even surpass you as a father." Yao Lao's eyes were slightly fiery, a look that Xiao Yan had also seen when he first met him. Hearing Yao Lao's evaluation, Xiao Yan also laughed. Talent and physique are important, but as for future achievements, they must also depend on personal perseverance. He has come this far today, not by talent, but by seeking breakthroughs in the bloody battles between life and death. True peak strongmen rely not on talent, but on great perseverance. Yao Lao kept pinching Xiao Zhao's muscles and bones, and his slightly forceful hand made Xiao Zhao's little mouth pout a bit, muttering in her mouth, which made the people around her chuckle. After pinching for a long time, Yao Lao finally looked up and looked directly at Xiao Yan and said without hesitation, "Let me cultivate Xiao Xiao in the future?" Even he, in the face of such a nearly perfect jade as Xiao Xiao, finally couldn't help it. Seeing Yao Lao's appearance, Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. He brought Xiao Xiao to the Falling Star Pavilion for this very reason. Yao Lao's alchemy skills were unmatched by anyone he knew. Having him personally cultivate Xiao Xiao was naturally the best. And Xiao Yan also understood in his heart that although Xiao Zhao's talent was exciting, it might not make Yao Lao so eager. The latter really regarded Xiao Xiao as his own granddaughter and wanted her to become perfect completely, which also made Xiao Yan feel a bit moved. "This child has also stayed in the wormhole with you for a few days. Let her have a good rest first," Yao Lao said affectionately, patting Xiao Zhao's head, and reluctantly handed her back to Kailin, and then ordered someone to settle Kailin and her daughter down first. Kailin is also a thoughtful person, knowing that the master and apprentice have something to say, so she said softly to Xiao Yan, "Then you guys talk first," and then she took Xiao Xiao and slowly retreated. Looking at Kailin, who took Xiao Xiao to retreat first, Yao Lao slowly withdrew his gaze and said with a smile, "Boy, you have a good daughter this time. but you actually got together with Medusa, which is really unexpected. Xiao Yan shrugged his hands. His relationship with Kailin is indeed too complicated. No one can imagine that the Queen Medusa who chased Xiao Yan for several years in the past finally became his wife. I have heard about your matter this time. It is enough to see that the Soul Hall is not joking by sending 2 heavenly Dozuns. However, they have also suffered a lot of losses this time. The Nineth Heavenly Dozun was killed on the spot by you, and even the 4th Heavenly Dozun was beaten to death before he could escape, Yao Lao said with a smile, stroking his beard. But as for what the Soul Hall wants to do, to be honest, I'm not very clear. This race has always been unpredictable. They must have a conspiracy when they collect souls. Judging from their recent acceleration in collecting souls, maybe this conspiracy is also accelerating. According to the information obtained, it seems that there have been quite a few wars in other continents outside the Central Plains, and the Soul Hall may be involved in it, Yao Lao said thoughtfully. Oh? There are also big wars in other places? Xiao Yan's face also changed a little, feeling a bit uneasy. What on earth do these guys of the Soul Hall want to do? Yao Lao nodded solemnly, then sighed lightly after a while, and changed the subject. There is only half a month left before the space trading fair starts. We should also make good preparations during this time. Those who can participate in the space trading fair are all top strongmen and extremely powerful forces. The pure Lotus Demon Flame is too attractive. Since we can get its news, other forces must also know. So, if you want to compete for the last piece of the broken map, we will inevitably bleed heavily. Xiao Yan nodded. The pure Lotus Demon Flame is the 3rd-ranked flame on the list of strange fires, and this ranking is enough to show its strength. And its attractiveness will undoubtedly be unquestionable. Even if it is just a piece of the broken map related to it, its value is quite terrifying. And to get it smoothly from the heavy competitors, it is not easy at all. But no matter what, the pure Lotus Demon Flame must be obtained. You have 3 of the 4 pieces of the broken map, and this last one must be obtained no matter what. Yao Lao said, the top 3 strange fires on the list of strange fires all have the power to destroy the sky and the earth. There are very few of these 3 strange fires in the world. Even after tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, it is difficult to form a second one. It is said that the top 3 strange fires are too powerful, and even the heavens and the earth dare not give birth to too many. Unless a strange fire disappears completely, perhaps after tens of thousands of years, this strange fire will appear again. Such a divine object, ghosts and gods fear it. Heaven and earth fear it. Since returning to the Falling Star Pavilion, Xiao Yan and Yao Lao have been in seclusion at the same time. During the time when the two were in seclusion, there were colorful Dan thunder and strange phenomena in the sky of the Falling Star Pavilion from time to time, attracting the surprised attention of many disciples of the Falling Star Pavilion. However, these strange phenomena did not cause any damage, and the formed Dan thunder was all quietly rushed into the thundercloud by a few figures flashing with dark gold light, and then all the Dan thunder was absorbed in a series of rumbling sounds. This kind of strange phenomenon lasted for nearly half a month before gradually decreasing. Half a month later, outside the stone tower at the back mountain of the Falling Star Pavilion, the figures of Yao Lao and Xiao Yan slowly came out of it. The faces of the two people are now full of fatigue. Looking at each other, they all smiled bitterly, and there was not much strength to say nonsense, so they went back to rest for 3 full days. On the 3rd day at noon, Xiao Yan and Yao Lao met again, but after 3 days of rest, their complexions were completely restored. Seeing Xiao Yan, Yao Lao also smiled and said, "Let's go. The space trading fair is about to start, and they should set off." Xiao Yan nodded, and there were only Kailin and Little Fairy Doctor following him at this time. After all, the Falling Star Pavilion is the headquarters, and Yao Lao is also going to set off this time, so it is better to leave more people here to guard against accidents. I have arranged everything at the Falling Star Pavilion. If something happens, I will rush back immediately. Yao Lao stood on the mountain peak, overlooking this star world, smiled slightly, and did not stay for too long. He stepped on the void with his foot, and quickly flashed towards the exit of the star world. "Let's go too." Seeing Yao Lao set off, Xiao Yan also turned his head and said to Kailin and the two women, and the two nodded gently, and the 3 quickly followed. The space trading fair is a very unfamiliar term in the Central Plains. Looking at the whole continent, only those top forces and strong men can know some information about the space trading fair. Xiao Yan looked up at the raging desert and said with some strangeness, "Is this the place?" Yao Lao nodded and said with a smile, "Although it looks remote here, if you carefully perceive, you will find that there are many strong breaths here." When he heard what Yao Lao said, Xiao Yan's heart moved, and his soul perception quickly spread out. Soon, his face gradually showed a look of surprise. Just a rough scan, he found that there were no less than 100 breaths in the desert, and the weakest strength also reached the level of 3-star Do Zun. Deserved to be the most high-end trading fair in the Central Plains, it can attract so many strong people. Xiao Yan exclaimed softly, "Hee, this is just a small part." Yao Lao stroked his beard and smiled, then said seriously, "Once you enter the Xing area, you should be a bit restrained. There are many strong people there. Some hidden sects may not be famous, but they may have old demons at the level of Do Sheng inside, so it's best to make trouble as little as possible." Seeing Yao Lao so serious, Xiao Yan and the other three nodded slightly. Of course, if others take the initiative to provoke, we can't show weakness. Yao Lao said with a faint smile, "Although the level of half-saint is not invincible, I am the first alchemist recognized in the Central Plains. Under this identity, even the real Do Sheng strong men dare not put on airs when they see me." As soon as the words fell, Yao Lao didn't say much more, waved his hand, and his figure stepped into the void and flew deep into the desert. In the depression of the towering sand mountain in the center of the desert, a huge space black hole was slowly rotating, and from time to time there were figures with strong breaths flashing on the sand mountains around, and then one by one rushed into the space black hole and disappeared. Is this the entrance to the space trading fair? It has actually built an independent space, which is really a big hand. Xiao Yan took a breath and murmured. Seeing the surprise on the faces of Xiao Yan and the other three, Yao Lao smiled and waved his hand and said, "Go in." Then the four quickly flew up the steep sand mountain and approached the space black hole. The moment they entered the black hole, they clearly felt a strange force sweeping over their bodies. Xiao Yan and the others' eyes were dark, and then there was light and noise. They opened their eyes and found that the world in front of them had become a small town. Although it was not big, the sky was a gray color, and there was a faint violent space fluctuation. This is the space town, the venue for the space trading fair. Although it is not as vast as the ancient world, it is enough as a trading place. Yao Lao looked at the people coming and going on the street and said with a smile, "Let's take a look first. There are almost no second-rate products here. All are rare items." Then they walked towards a street, and their eyes kept scanning the sides. There were green stone platforms on both sides of the street, with scrolls, jade bottles, and weapon magic cores floating on them. As his eyes kept jumping, the dazzling items flashed into Xiao Yan's eyes, and even he could not remain calm. This street is not very long, only a few hundred meters, and when Xiao Yan got to the end, he was just about to pull Kai Lin into the deep, but he found that Kai Lin's footsteps suddenly stopped. Following her gaze, it turned out to be a 7-colored primordial stone. Xiao Yan frowned slightly. This kind of 7-colored primordial stone is a mutated special spiritual stone, which is closely related to the 7-colored sky-devouring python. It is said that it may only appear in the place where the 7-colored sky-devouring python falls, and the 7-colored primordial stone that absorbs the blood of the sky-devouring python will produce a very unique energy, which is a real tonic for the sky-devouring python. No wonder Kai Lin stopped because of it. Xiao Yan walked slowly to the front, glanced at the back of the stone platform, and saw a thin old man sitting cross-legged listlessly behind it. "Mr. Old, how can I get the 7-colored primordial stone?" Xiao Yan rubbed a piece of 7-colored primordial stone with his palm. Although this thing is rare, it is not priceless. The most important thing is that its value is limited, only useful for the 7-colored sky-devouring python. Other people get it, and it is useless. The old man said, 2 8th-tier pills with more than 3-colored pill thunder. Xiao Yan and the thin old man made a fuss for a while, until the old man was a bit impatient, and he threw a jade bottle over, grabbed the 7-colored primordial stone, and then turned around with Kai Lin, quickly disappearing in the old man's sight. After passing a bend, Xiao Yan stopped and threw the seven-colored primordial stone in his hand to Kai Lin, saying, "Is there any problem with this thing?" Yao Lao and Little Fairy Doctor also looked at Kai Lin in surprise, and then carefully observed the seven-colored primordial stone, but did not find any difference. A smile appeared on Kai Lin's face as she said, "Ordinary people only know that the place where the body of the seven-colored sky-devouring python falls may give birth to the seven-colored primordial stone, but they do not know that if more than 100 bodies of the seven-colored sky-devouring python fall in the same place at the same time, it is possible to give birth to the 8-colored or even 9-colored primordial stone." Kai Lin continued, "However, it is almost impossible for hundreds of seven-colored sky-devouring pythons to fall at the same time. So ordinary people only know about the seven-colored primordial stone, but they do not know about the existence of 8-colored and 9-colored. In fact, the real peak of the seven-colored sky-devouring python is not called this name, but 9-colored sky-devouring python. In the group of sky-devouring pythons, it seems that only the ancestors with the thickest blood have reached this state." Hearing Kai Lin's words, not only Xiao Yan, but even Yao Lao was surprised. Obviously, they had never heard of this secret. Xiao Yan smiled bitterly, then asked curiously, "So, is this stone an 8-colored or 9-colored primordial stone?" Kai Lin's fingernail crossed the jade finger, and a drop of blood fell on the stone. It was seen that after the smooth surface, the seventh color pattern slowly appeared a color pattern. To determine whether this stone is an 8-colored or 9-colored, you must use the blood of the 7-colored sky-devouring python. It's an 8-colored primordial stone. Seeing this, Xiao Yan felt a bit of regret. If this were a 9-colored primordial stone, Kai Lin would really make a big profit. Of course, he also knew he was greedy, and 8-colored was already very good. If used properly, it would greatly enhance Kai Lin's strength. If that old guy knew, he would probably spit out a mouthful of blood directly. Yao Lao said, "Let's go. I'll take you to see the real treasures, and what we need is also there." Then he turned and walked towards the end of the street. Xiao Yan and Little Fairy Doctor quickly followed. Kai Lin's jade hand rubbed the 8-colored primordial stone in his hand, and then put it into the storage ring. However, in that instant, even she didn't notice that when she put away the 8-colored primordial stone, there was actually a very faint and thin line that appeared after the 8th color pattern. Spacetown is not very big. There are only a few ancient streets crisscrossing. Xiao Yan and the three followed Yao Lao through several ancient streets and did not stop because of the dazzling items on both sides, but went straight to the destination. Finally, they stopped at the end of a street. At this place stands an ancient attic, and there are two old men in gray robes standing outside the attic at this time. They are as motionless as statues, but they exude a strong wave of fighting spirit that makes people feel awe-inspiring. These two people who are just guarding the door have reached the level of a 6-star Dozun. Such a level of strong people, even in the Heavenly Abyss sect or the Falling Star Pavilion, can become distinguished guests, which shows how high the level of this space trading fair is. This ancient treasure attic is not accessible to everyone. Only those with invitations from the 3 major sects can enter. It is not as easy to get this invitation as imagined. Yao Lao smiled slightly. He was an old customer here in those years, so getting an invitation was not difficult. As soon as Yao Lao finished speaking, he walked straight to the door, then flicked his finger. A red light shot out from his sleeve and went straight to the two old men. After receiving the red light, the two expressionless old men waved their sleeves, and 4 black lights flew towards Xiao Yan and the other 4 people, suspended in front of them, which turned out to be several black fighting cloaks. Most of the people who enter here hide their identities. After all, wealth does not show white. This thing is specially made by the 3 major sects and can defend against others' detection, Yao Lao said with a smile. When they stepped into this ancient attic, Xiao Yan looked around. The attic was dimly lit, and there was nothing special. Please follow me." An old man in gray quickly walked over from the side and said in a low voice to the 4 people, then walked towards the depths of the dimly lit attic. A group of people walked in the corridor of the attic for a few minutes, and finally stopped in front of a bronze door. "This is our destination," Yao Lao said softly, then slowly pushed open the ancient bronze door, and a faint light came out from it. After entering, they saw an ancient hall about half the size of a square appeared in their sight. There are many stone chairs in the ancient hall, and many people are sitting on these chairs at the moment. Just like Xiao Yan and his group, their faces are covered by black cloaks. Then Yao Lao walked straight to a relatively hidden position and sat down, while waving his sleeves. There are many strong people here. We must be careful, otherwise our conversation can be easily discovered by them. Yao Lao said lightly, let's wait quietly, the trading fair should start soon. In the silence of Yao Lao and Xiao Yan and the other three, nearly 2 hours passed quietly. During these 2 hours, people wearing black cloaks have been entering here one after another, and finally it is roughly estimated that there are no less than 100 people. Suddenly, a melodious and crisp bell sounded in the quiet ancient hall, and then in the center of the hall, an old man with white hair slowly appeared in everyone's sight. This is the owner of the Treasure Mirror Mountain, the old man of the Treasure Mountain. He has reached the peak of the 9 turns of Dozun, and he is only 1 step away from being a half-saint. Hee, it's another space trading fair. Everyone is well. The old man of the Treasure Mountain's gaze swept through the hall. His old voice sounded in everyone's ears. People have almost arrived. There is no need to say more nonsense. Let's start this space trading fair. As the last sentence of the old man of the Treasure Mountain fell, almost all the eyes in the hall were focused on him. Next, we will start the auction of the first item of this space trading fair. In the twisted space wall, the old man of the Treasure Mountain stretched out his hand, and a pair of pale bone wings appeared in the void, and there was a faint sound of wind and thunder coming out of the bone wings, demon phoenix wings, the wings of the heavenly demon phoenix tribe. Everyone here should know how rare this is. The old man of the Treasure Mountain said with a smile, the owner of the demon phoenix wings wants to exchange it for an 8th tier pill that has experienced 4-colored pill thunder. If anyone is interested, please make a bid. As the old man of the Treasure Mountain's voice fell, the hall fell silent again. After about 5 minutes, a hoarse voice finally sounded, I want it. The old man of the Treasure Mountain said, is there anyone who will offer a higher price? There was silence around, and no one spoke. The old man of the Treasure Mountain was not surprised by this. Seeing that no one made a bid, he smiled and flicked his finger, and the demon phoenix wings in front of him flew directly to the first bidder. Hee, let's continue to auction the second item. After completing the first transaction, the old man of the Treasure Mountain smiled, and a golden scroll appeared in front of him again. In the following auction, the items that appeared were more and more dazzling, from dough skills to cultivation methods, from pills to precious heavenly materials and treasures, from weapons to medicine cauldrons, etc. Each item is enough to cause a sensation in the outside world. However, it seems that there is not much shock here. Although these auction items are very rare, Xiao Yan did not participate in the purchase. In addition to a volume of the Heavenly Nether Poison Tome that appeared halfway, Xiao Yan made a bid with 2 5th-tier Pill Thunder 8th-tier pills to help Little Fairy Doctor get it, and then he did not buy anything. On the one hand, because the exchange conditions proposed by the other party were too harsh, on the other hand, because he did not have an urgent need. We are starting the penultimate item of this trading fair. After just completing a high-priced transaction, the old man of the Treasure Mountain looked up at the hall and smiled, then clenched his hand, and a yellowed ancient parchment appeared in his hand. And just as this parchment appeared, Xiao Yan raised his head and stared tightly at the ancient map. His breathing under the cloak became a bit heavy, because he was very familiar with this. Xiao Yan has been looking for it for more than 10 years. Hee, this is just a broken map. There is no special energy on it, but through our research, we have concluded that this broken map should be related to the legendary Pure Lotus Demon Flame. The old man of the Treasure Mountain said, holding the ancient parchment in his hand. When he finished the last word, almost everyone in the hall was looking at the broken map. The third-ranked flame on the list of strange fires. This kind of almost only exists in legends. Even characters like Yao Lao have never seen it with their own eyes. Everyone present was very clear. Looking at the quiet hall, the old man of the Treasure Mountain smiled. The owner of this broken map is clear about the attraction of the Pure Lotus Demon Flame, so he has kept this broken map until now. He wants to exchange it for some pills, of course. The quality of the pills needs to be at least above the 6-colored Pill Thunder. As for the quantity, it depends on everyone's willingness. The old man of the treasure mountain said with a smile, then looked around the audience. Now the bidding starts. There are obviously quite a few people in the hall who are interested in this drawing. And then a hoarse voice suddenly sounded, 3 6th-tier pill thunder 8th-tier pills. All kinds of bidding sounds quickly heated up the atmosphere, and under the satisfied eyes of the old man of the treasure mountain, the price also rose rapidly. In less than 10 minutes, it had already risen to 9 6th-tier pill thunder 8th-tier pills, 5 7th-tier pill thunder 8th-tier pills. Following the previous price, an angry voice suddenly sounded. This price is undoubtedly very high, and it immediately caused a moment of silence in the hall. 8 8th-tier pills with the power of 7-colored pill thunder. Suddenly, a steady voice echoed, and upon hearing it, Xiao Yan felt a slight relief in his heart. Yao Lao finally began to make a move. Seeing Yao Lao's bid, the previous bidder snorted coldly, hesitated for a moment, and then bid again. A single 8th-tier pill with the power of 8-color pill thunder. As these words fell, a low murmur arose within the great hall. Clearly no one had expected that for a fragment of a map. This person was even willing to bring out an 8-color pill thunder pill. Yao Lao said, 3. Still with a faint voice, but it overcame all the sounds in the hall. Hearing Yao Lao's words, that person could only give up with extreme reluctance. Seeing that person no longer spoke, Xiao Yan also breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, just about to speak when Yao Lao's voice echoed in his ear. Don't be too happy. 5, came the voice filled with a cold and fierce tone. Xiao Yan's face also slightly lifted, his gaze following the direction from which the voice came, seeing a somewhat thin figure sitting cross-legged on a stone chair. The latter seemed to sense Xiao Yan's gaze, suddenly turned his head, and under the hood, a sinister look was like an arrow shooting over, causing the surrounding space to ripple slightly, and at the same time, a strange pressure also enveloped Xiao Yan. When that pressure enveloped Xiao Yan, Yao Lao also snorted coldly, casually waved his sleeve, and instantly destroyed that intangible pressure. Be careful, this person is a strong one with 1 foot in the half-do qiong, Yao Lao said softly, and for the first time, there was a solemn tone in his voice. Xiao Yan's face suddenly changed. This space trading fair indeed hid dragons and tigers. 8, Yao Lao also said coldly, but at this moment, his face was already wrinkled. Obviously this bidding was beyond his budget. Hee, this friend has bid 8 8th-tier pills with the power of 8-color pill thunder. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? Said the Treasure Mountain Elder with a smile. The words of the Treasure Mountain Elder made the great hall silent for a while, and one after another, the eyes were cast on the thin person who had bid with Yao Lao before. For those eyes, the thin person in the black robe also gave a cold smile, and then said, a single 9th-tier pill with the power of 9-color pill thunder. If you can offer a higher price than this, then this fragment of the map will be yours. Seeing that the black-robed person actually took out a pill of the 9-color pill thunder level, everyone present took a breath, shaking their heads and their hearts. This guy is really crazy. And Xiao Yan's face also completely sank at this moment. He also had a pill of the 9-color pill thunder level in his hand, but if used for exchange, the loss would be too great. Such a pill, if well cultivated, could rise to a 9th-tier pill in the future, and the value would soar by hundreds of times. Yao Lao lightly tapped the armrest with his fingers. Although covered by the cloak, Xiao Yan knew he must be frowning. He pulled Yao Lao's sleeve and shook his head to indicate that this was not the time to be impulsive. Yao Lao nodded, and a low voice also entered Xiao Yan's ear. The bidding price is too high, but I have already known the identity of that old guy, an old opponent from that year, and this time it is just right to settle the old grudge. The thin, black-robed person laughed strangely, then looked at the Treasure Mountain Elder in the center of the hall, waved his hand, and a snow-white rabbit appeared in his hand, which quickly flew to the ladder. The Treasure Mountain Elder waved his hand, carefully checked the snow-white rabbit, felt the terrifying pure energy in its body, nodded, and showed admiration in his eyes. Obviously, he didn't expect someone to be willing to exchange such a pill. The Treasure Mountain Elder said, "The transaction is complete. This map is yours." When the ancient map fell into the hands of the black-robed old man, Xiao Yan's hand in his sleeve was also tightly clenched, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He must obtain the pure lotus demon flame. so he must also get the fragment of the map, no matter how strong the other party is. Hee. The last item of our space trading fair this time is not an item, but an intelligence. Although this information may spread in the Central Plains soon, we should be the first to know here. After the ancient map was traded, the Treasure Mountain Elder smiled and looked at the whole audience and said, "Rest assured, this information is free, but because it is somewhat sensational, it was put at the end." Hearing this, everyone frowned. What kind of information could be so valued by the Treasure Mountain Elder? Sensing the puzzled eyes of the crowd, the Treasure Mountain Elder also smiled slightly, and then his voice slowly echoed in the hall. That legendary Bodhi ancient tree, which can make people a saint immediately, has reappeared after 10,000 years. Everyone exclaimed, "Bodhi ancient tree." The words of the Treasure Mountain Elder were like the thunder of the sky, immediately causing a commotion in the whole hall, and many strong men could not conceal their inner horror and stood up one after another. Bodhi ancient tree, if you want to rank the treasures on the Do-Chi continent, it can certainly be in the top 3. This tree is also known as the Wisdom Reincarnation Tree, which is recorded in ancient books as reincarnating once every 1,000 years, and it is considered mature after 100 rounds, and is considered one of the oldest existences on the continent. Every time the Bodhi ancient tree appears in the world, it will cause a huge wave on the continent. According to ancient books, there seems to be only this Bodhi ancient tree in the world, which seems to have its own wisdom, and after each appearance, it hides deep in the earth, leaving no trace for seekers, and only reappears in the world when the next reincarnation comes. The Bodhi ancient tree stands and becomes a saint, which is not an empty talk. The Bodhi heart contained in the Bodhi ancient tree. Anyone who gets it can turn the mind into a Bodhi and easily enter the realm of the saint. Such a magical effect is enough to make everyone crazy. Even the Bodhi seeds below the Bodhi heart also have an irresistible attraction to those who are at the peak of the Do Zone. It is precisely because of these reasons that the Bodhi ancient tree has an extreme craze for those top strong people. It can be imagined that once this news is spread, it will definitely cause a huge wave in the Central Plains. When Xiao Yan showed a shocked look, the Yao Lao next to him also took a deep breath. Obviously this information, even his mood, could not be completely calm. Xiao Yan's fingers slowly touched the storage ring, which contained a Bodhi seed. It is said that the Bodhi seed can sense the Bodhi ancient tree, but why there is no feeling at all? Is it because the distance is too far? The Treasure Mountain Elder looked at the people who were shocked and gasped, and he was very interested in the Bodhi ancient tree himself. If it weren't for the place where it appeared to be too dangerous, he almost wanted to take people to search for the treasure personally. Treasure Mountain Elder, can you tell the exact location where the Bodhi ancient tree appears? After the shock, someone in the hall asked first. The Treasure Mountain Elder said, "The location where the Bodhi ancient tree appears this time should not be unfamiliar to everyone. It is located in the primeval wilds on the northeast border of the Central Plains." Hearing this, everyone exclaimed again, and the strong people who were eager to stand up before showed hesitation on their faces and sat down again. It turned out to be in that place. Xiao Yan's brow also slightly wrinkled. He naturally heard of the primeval wilds, which is the oldest and most dangerous place on the Do-Chi continent, and it is also a forbidden place for all humans. However, no one ever thought that the location where the Bodhi ancient tree appeared would be within the primeval wilds. No wonder the old man was willing to release this news. With the power of the Treasure Mountain and the other two sects, entering the primeval wilds is simply courting death, and they intend to attract more people to enter in order to take advantage of the chaos. Every time the Bodhi ancient tree appears, it will cause a strange phenomenon in heaven and earth, and everyone will gradually feel it within this month. The Treasure Mountain Elder continued, "This space trading fair is also successfully concluded. Thank you all for coming again." Hearing this, everyone in the hall got up one after another and went out. The Bodhi ancient tree is indeed a treasure. If there is an opportunity, we should also explore it. Seeing the crowd disperse, Yao Lao said softly, "But before that, we must first obtain the ancient map."